For sure, thank you very much. So the subject I thought I would bring to the attention of the Trackmania community is, although I'm sure all of you guys have discussed this at length yourself, but to kind of unite these discussions under one point is the evolution of how Trackmania, at least through its Maniaplanet iterations, has came through with Maniaplanet 4, which was released only a few short years ago, and how that has affected the Trackmania Trackmania 2 community over the last few years, what that has meant for some different events of which we've played, what that has brought to the game, and also, of course, perhaps even what that means for the future. So, for those of you who don't know, of course, at the very least, when I started playing Trackmania, it was on, as it was called, Maniaplanet 3. As it was, you may remember some even small visual cues from it. Some of your blocks that were in nowadays were no longer part of it.
UI and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. New UI. There was much more prevalent Ramstein bugs and things like that, as they're affectionately known. And yeah, there was a lot of different server controllers, although that's coming into more community-made efforts and things like that. But to get on to the main part of the story before I digress, of course, being Maniaplanet 4, this is an update that was released, if my memory serves me correctly, just in the tail end of 2017, I believe it was, start of 2018. And it was an update that was primarily pushed towards dealing with some bugs which had been in the game for quite some time, giving a UI update as well as a kind of fresh face to Trackmania and, well, Maniaplanet in general, of course, bringing the Shootmania umbrella inside it. So we had things coming into the game like channels, we had new map editors coming in, we saw the mesh modeler blocks getting their time in the sun, so to speak. We saw efforts, as we were saying, to get rid of some of the Ramstein bugs that we're talking about previously, as well as some new interesting features like magnet blocks and things like that. That was, again, bringing some new elements to a lot of different places of the game, of which we had not seen previously. But when Maniaplanet 4 actually came into the game, we saw a few improvements. As I said, we saw a reduction in some of the bugs of which we at least initially thought. We saw some introductions of new ones. Of course, one of my at least favourite things from the Maniaplanet update was the introduction of the channel system, at the very least allowing people a little bit of a taste or a teaser, so to speak, of the different environments of Trackmania. Say, for example, people who had never tried Canyon, Valley, things like that, and also a chance to try the likes of Shootmania and all its different environments while not having to worry about paying for a full license, when you could just go on and try with your friends in multiple different game modes and kind of take it from there. But why we bring up Maniaplanet 4 is unfortunately not for a lot of the things that went right. It's about some of the things that rather it courted kind of controversy coming in with new bugs that were introduced to the game, well, maybe not introduced, but more highlighted with the game, such as mid-road bugs were affectionately more discovered throughout the release of Maniaplanet 4. It was discovered that, well, there was a reduction in Ramstein bugs, they were not eradicated overall, and also the amount of issues this kind of brought into the grand scheme of Trackmania in terms of how it affected events. Now, of course, some of you may remember, and some of you may have played, of course, in the multiple kind of endurance race series we've had over the years. I'm sure we've covered some at the very least in some episodes gone past in different podcasts and such. But for those who are not aware, we've had multi-races held by the likes of Frostbill, we've had multi-races held by the likes of Spam, G4S are holding one actually concurrently at the moment, and I believe Spam's running some tests again.
Yeah,
but
he's,
I mean,
to actually go off on your point. So yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, Spam is indeed hosting lap races again, but this time he's actually limiting the number of players to 100, with the subscribers having priority. This is how it actually works, and it's races every Saturday at 5 o'clock on each Saturday, and it's for Spam subscribers that have priority. And after that, he's still kind of wondering whether or not he is opening the server up to other people to join in. That's another question that we're not going to have an answer to for now.
Yeah, for sure. But the main, of course, through at least Maniaplanet 3's iteration, when we had the Frostbill's weekly race, when we had the early days of at least Spam's weekly race, the servers were able to run relatively instant free, of course, out with some normal kind of issues we've seen through the history of Trackmania, red times, invalid times, and so on. People having issues loading all the things on the map and such. But the main issues we'd focus on, at least that Maniaplanet 4 brought in, is the lap script. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the endurance race concept, normally it's a 2 to 3 minute long map incorporating the different styles of stadiums. So you've got the technical parts, you've got dirt parts, full speed parts, and RPG parts, in whatever mix of which the mapper has decided to go into. And it will be on a set number of laps, say 15 for example's sake, to give it an event which roughly between 30 and 45 minutes. So of course the players will be racing on track for a straight 30 to 45 minutes depending on how long the event's going to be. And normally it attracted a very large amount of players, much along the likes of, you see the Trackmania Talent, or True Talent Cups, pardon me, where it attracts northwards of 100 people at the very least for each sort of week which came in. So as you said, these ran relatively flawlessly, at least as you could expect for Trackmania back in Maniaplanet 3. However, in Maniaplanet 4 we saw increased issues, especially in Spam's weekly race when he attempted to host these, with repeatedly seeing after a certain amount of time that it appeared to be that a lot of players were having their timer disrupted. They were having invalid time, so they would no longer be able to complete it. And we saw some really bizarre bugs, which yours truly actually suffered from, where you would be going through checkpoints and your car would be going to a quarter of its normal size, which had never really been seen before.
And a high-pitched sound. In fact, there is a famous clip by, it was Big Man Taxon, if we want to be exact, that actually experienced that firsthand in the last ever race before, for the last 2.5 years at least, where basically we could hear the engine sound, which was Tyler 1's imitating a car movement, and then all of a sudden it gained like an octave. All of a sudden, just after crossing a checkpoint, it went from and you could see the car actually reducing in size to a quarter. And Taxon's reaction is just priceless. I don't have the clip under my belt right now, so I can't play it, but. It's actually you can actually search it. I think it's called Small Man Taxon, as a matter of fact, the clip on Twitch.
I was the very first person that happened to on stream, at the very least.
Oh, okay.
I remember I was doing one of the Spam Weekly races and it happened to me, and having never seen it before, as of course this hadn't happened to someone, at least as far as my knowledge, before. And at the very least, even if it did, it wasn't caught on camera, so to speak. So that was quite a terrifying surprise to me, especially trying to drive that in the middle of an event. But I digress a little bit. But again, onto the issues which Maniaplanet 4 brought for these sort of, shall we say, high volume events. So a lot of people on a kind of long event that's going along at the same time. So we saw a lot of people disconnecting, a lot of people getting invalid times, and generally it severely inhibited the ability of these tournaments to actually even go on, which we've seen in the times gone by. Unfortunately, back then Spam decided to cancel his weekly race as a result, although it's coming back in kind of various iterations when he's tried to at least bring up the testing front through the last year or so to try and at least get something rolling again for his fans and the fans of the event itself. But recently we've seen both server issues and issues just regarding getting the plugin working, claiming a lot more events through the years that seem to bring a big halt to the DDE events. Of course, through I believe they attempted to do their first 24-hour race in quite a long time, just a month or two ago there, as they were having trouble reworking their plugin to suit the new update for Maniaplanet 4. So it's not just as simple as it's just caused some issues for tournaments even having when they're going into their events, and not all players are even able to get on track. It's about the rework that a lot of these places who use custom plugins have had to go through. I believe, if I remember correctly, the staff which Mass had surrounding themselves attempted to revive the kind of Spartan Cup format, which if you might remember for quite some time ago. But again, that was very difficult due to the issues had because of the Maniaplanet 4 rework. But recently we've seen with the new, well, I suppose it's not a new update anymore, we've had time to kind of dissect it and see what the issues had, but recently it was more in the news that the 24-hour race had to shut down for the first time ever in the middle of its event there. Very unfortunate, of course, despite the best efforts of the kind of collective Trackmania community behind the scenes. We had Trackmania admins getting involved, admins from all across the different sides of Trackmania trying to get involved to keep this event going, but we've seen adjustments coming in from DDE to try and make the event more suitable with the tools they have. But unfortunately, as you'll see the statement coming up there from the lovely host himself, DDE had to, for the first time ever, cancel their event, which, I mean, at least history's shown us that they were able to host events relatively more stable in Trackmania 3, or sorry, pardon me, in Maniaplanet 3. And we've also seen that claiming some other events recently. We've seen some server issues plaguing Game War Duo Cup, if I remember correctly.
Although,
but
it must be said that for the Game War Duo Cup, it wasn't actually the dedicated server of Maniaplanet per se that caused issues. It was just that the servers that were picked at first for the organization of the event were not actually able to hold up sufficiently with the amount of players that the Game War Duo Cup was actually receiving. So yeah, they decided to delay it by 2 weeks. Instead of taking place on April 26th, it took place on May the 9th and May the 10th, so that they could actually get beefier servers to actually accommodate as much players as they could.
Fair. But at least coming in with this Maniaplanet 4 update, we've seen a great amount of issues being brought, despite the number of fixes they done, the amount of kind of new features of which they brought into the kind of framework that they already have. It's kind of been, it's given as well as it's taken, in the sense that it's gave quite a good bit to the Trackmania community, but it's also taken a good bit away from the Trackmania community. But we have had statements from Hillis, at the very least most recently, in a conversation with another community member, Buzzy, although albeit in French. However, you guys will be able to check it out if you check out Hillis's Twitter page, where he discusses how the lap script, especially, it's based upon, if I recall correctly, issues with a very, very old code, which is proving for them very difficult to rework, and it's proving very difficult for them to debug, which has resulted in what a lot of people have felt a lack of care coming from the deal, which they were very quick to dismiss. But it's led to a kind of sour attitude from the Trackmania community with the amount of issues that Maniaplanet 4 has caused, which a lot of people were just simply saying, why not roll it back? But, I mean, what do you guys think about that?
You want to start out, Eirik?
Sure, I guess everybody agrees that this is not a situation we want. If you look at the history of Trackmania is existing at the moment, at least as a popular game within the community because of the community. The community is the reason for going through the years 2016, 2017, when the Nadeo stepped down and didn't want to host ESWC anymore. The community has always been there. They always hosted events for the players that are within the community. So when popular events like Frost Duels Weekly or Spams Weekly are not able to go further, that may, let's say that was my favorite event, and now I cannot play it anymore, then some players might quit. Let's say that Spam hosted some other tournaments along with this tournament, but that was his favorite tournament, then maybe he will quit as an organizer. So just some small problems can lead to bigger problems, and that is not an ideal situation. And yeah, an argument that is always brought up once Serator is hosting his cup, he got new blocks, he got everything suited for his cup. So the argument is given that, let's say that he hosted in lap script, then Nadeo would actually do it and then they would fix it. I'm not sure about that. I'm not spoken to nobody in Nadeo about why it's not fixed yet, and I'm far too stupid to understand how advanced that coding is. So the server side of it, and certainly the lap script, is what is taking a big hit. But I also want to just point out that it's a positive implementation, because now it's less bugs in. We don't have the Ramstein bug anymore. So if I look at the competitions I care the most about and I follow the most, which is taking place in cup mode, then I would say Maniaplanet 4 is, in my personal view, a good update, but I can certainly see why it's a bad update at the moment, and I hope that it's not going to be the same problems once we get into the new Trackmania. And I don't really hope that they are going to focus too much about fixing this lap script at the moment when it's just 1.5 months left of Maniaplanet 4.
Yeah, now to chip in on what you said about the fact that some of the people's favorite competitions being completely cancelled because of the server issues making players quit. Well, I can actually speak for myself. That was my case. When I started up playing Trackmania Stadium back in 2015, where I somewhat took grip to the game, it was mostly to play Frost Buell races or Spams races a little bit later when he took the house, because those were my favorite kind of events. To be fair, I was shit at tech, I'm still shit at tech, I was shit at dirt, I'm still shit at dirt, you know? I'm kind of like the average pleb of Trackmania that just want to actually pick up the game and have a good time. And I feel like being from more traditional racing game background, where I'm mostly used to do laps around the circuit rather than actually play rounds from point A to point B, I felt like the FB's Weekly and the Spams Weekly was really what suited me, and so I took the game. I actually eventually got better and better. I even got to the top 40s and top 30s at one point. And then when the events started to get canceled because of the network issues that arose with MP4, I didn't really take a liking to actually play the game all that much again, because even though I experimented with tech, for instance, I did try out to actually take in competitions and whatever, I still feel like it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So then, of course, then real life came in with the studies, and so yeah, pretty much the game kind of flunked. But yeah, also, yeah, I do like the fact to the theory of Zerator having everything tailored for his cup. I feel like it's just a bit of, what do we call, I don't have the word in English, we call this mauvaise foi in French, basically. It's basically extrapolating way too much on a wrongdoing of somebody impacting the rest of the community. I feel like it's not the mindset that we should actually adopt, and we are more I'm more thinking like it's something that they're aware of, and Helios explained himself that since it's based on very old code, it's probably not really worth the hassle to actually go ahead and debug in this, and it would actually sap all the momentum of the studio whilst they're actually developing in the the new game, which again comes in around a month and a half. So I like to believe that it was something that they put on the back burner, but then they felt like it was way too old to actually work on anything, so eventually it kind of got discarded and improvised at the new game. But other than that, I really do hope that they are going to be working on a fresh code base. Although I do have a bit of web development skills, it's not anywhere game related, so I have no idea how the netcode of a game like Trackmania could work. But yeah, I really hope that they are going to be looking into it at one point and actually address this issue so that we can get those cups back and yeah, get some people more attracted. And I feel like I said pretty much what I wanted to say over the course of the MP4 issues, and I feel like we've covered
just some
everything.
Quick questions though, just so we end this. If, let's say, people bring up Maniaplanet 4 now with a bad taste and a bad angle, if you could pick, would you go back to Maniaplanet 3 where you had the other bugs but not the server issue bugs, or would you stick to Maniaplanet 4? And if you are Nadeo, should Nadeo care even about fixing Maniaplanet 4, or should they just leave this to quote-unquote die or let it be for the rest of the game's history?
Well, to be fair, I'm gonna adopt. If I was a community member, well, an event organizer, and having discovered the issues firsthand, I would have straight up tried to roll back, ask Nadeo to roll back to MP3. Of course, that would never happened. But if I was the mindset of Nadeo, then I would adopt what you actually said. I feel like it would be way too much work to actually maintain the platform, and the platform might not be viable anyway. Plus, there's a new game in the works, and all the momentum of the team is actually gravitating towards the new game rather than actually maintaining the platform, which is going to see like slightly reduced effectives or staff rather for actually maintaining the platform with more iterative corrective updates and not really big reworks or big fixes, bug fixes like the lap script, which is extremely old. So yeah, then that's a bit of my take. If I was a community organizer, I would have asked for a rollback to MP3, but from the Nadeo standpoint, without things are now, I would straight up abandon MP4 and focus on the new game and try to start on a fresh code base to make sure that things will actually be rock solid in the future.
Yeah, I mean, if I have my take on that, at the very least back at the time, I would have just said, look, you've released an update which is broken. I mean, I recall they released it in the middle of I believe it was in the middle of a TMM tournament. I seem to remember playing a match there, and it was in the semi-finals or so. And when the update actually got pushed out, it was almost impossible to actually play a match. I mean, you couldn't even do rounds properly. Team mode wasn't working properly. So if you're releasing an update, no matter how big it is, no matter how profound it is, if it doesn't work, it should get pushed back to whatever form it originally worked as best as it could in, which was Maniaplanet 3. But they decided to keep going with it. They fixed some of the other issues, and the community got involved to improve the framework, with server controllers and things like that, which patched some of the gaping holes that it really left. But I mean, I don't really expect them to be doing much about it going forward, and whether I'd want them to or not, I'm really not sure. I just want to see the new Trackmania starting off with a nice strong framework. I want to know that if I go into this new Trackmania, I'm not going to be seeing the same mess that comes up with Maniaplanet 4 when that came out. As I said, it was very difficult to play. It was very, very difficult to organise tournaments. If that's the same in the new Trackmania, then I'll certainly be very concerned. But as long as they've got the same framework, they've got a good framework, they've got the sort of base which these tournaments can work from. You can host a weekly event or a weekly mixed-styled event such as a spam weekly race. You can host that there. You're not going to have these such issues that the True Talent Cup was having. They're having people spending hundreds of hours of their own time just trying to get it working even. So I just hope they have that fixed going forward. If that means that they have to kind of sacrifice Trackmania 2 for it, I wouldn't like it, but I'll accept it. I'll accept sacrificing Trackmania 2 to make sure Trackmania 3 is great. That's the kind of way I look at it.
Okay, also, just to quickly address stuff that we are reading in the chat that I wasn't actually aware of. For instance, Terminator 681 on Eirik saying that they didn't even mention that MP4 completely erased the Canyon Valley leaderboards. That's something I wouldn't have actually been aware of because I didn't own Canyon or Valley at the time that the MP4 was actually pushed. And we also got a few accounts of entire title packs even, and not just servers, being completely broken. We have, for instance, the RPG title pack mentioned by Virtual, or even the F1 title pack, as mentioned by Eirik Andre here, but yeah. I feel like we've... do you have anything more to add, Scotty, or you feel like we've covered everything?
I feel like we've covered everything. Just, as I say, let's look forward to see what Trackmania brings, and this might be something we can maybe go back to talk about in the future once we've seen what we've got in store for us when the new game comes out.
Yeah, see how everything fares in the space of a few weeks, months, and then talk about how stable it is now.